Hello kitty boys and girls, in this video we're going to be doing a tier list for Furina's best weapons. As always, we're just going to be ranking the swords in the tier list based around which of them are the best to use on Furina. First of all, let me tell you what you're going to need on a weapon for Furina first, just to know based around what we're ranking these weapons. So the first thing is, and these things are not even really like ranked, it's just like pretty much different things that can be good on a weapon for Furina, but in my opinion, one of the best things is just going to be elemental skill damage increase or any elemental skill buffs. Most of her damage is going to be coming from her elemental skill, so any buffs for that are going to be like huge. Energy recharge is going to be pretty good on a weapon too. It's not really like necessary on a weapon, but it's still necessary on Furina herself. You're going to need energy recharge from somewhere, whether it's your weapon, sands, substats, double hydro, whatever. So on some weapons it can be good, you know, get energy recharge and then you can use other things on Furina. HP or HP percentage is also going to be pretty good. All of her damage is going to scale off with HP, so HP is also going to be pretty decent. And then finally, crit rate and crit damage are also going to be pretty good. Her damage crits, so any like crit rate weapons, crit damage weapons are going to be pretty decent. But yeah, that's pretty much about it for the things that are good on Furina. Those are mainly the things you want to get from your weapon. Anything other than that is probably not going to matter. Usually you'd want at least like 2 of these combined on a weapon, and it's going to make it pretty good. But yeah, with that being said, let's move on to weapons and rank them. Alright, so first of all, starting off with the cool steel, just attack and then increases damage against opponents affected by Hydra or Cryo. The passive is good, but the whole weapon is just kind of meh. I would say it's probably C tier, just for the passive because it might be usable. Not even always, but like sometimes. Other than that, the weapon is just meh. You have Harbinger of Dawn. Crit damage is a substat, and then when your HP is above 90%, it's going to increase your crit rate. That's also very good. It's going to give you quite a bit of crit damage and also crit rate, which is super good. Usually this weapon is not super good on a lot of characters just because of the base attack, but base attack doesn't really matter on Furina, so it's actually going to be a decent weapon on her. Honestly, I would say it's probably around A tier. You know what, to be honest, I'd lower it to B tier. If there was something else, maybe A tier, but it's just plain crit, so honestly I would say B tier is probably the right, you know, place. And it's not really that much crit anyways, so yeah. We've got the Traveler's Handy Sword, that's just, you know, defense and bullshit. It's D tier. Dark Iron is just Elemental Mastery, and yeah, for Elemental Mastery it's not really that good on her. She's probably not gonna need it most of the time. She's gonna be applying a lot of hydro, so she probably won't be the one like doing any reactions. So yeah, I'd just say D tier too. Fillet Blade, D tier, just attack. And then we have the Skyrider Sword. It's pretty much just energy recharge. I mean, it's usable, but not really much going on with the whole weapon. I would say it's probably around like C tier. Your damage is probably not gonna be that good. Even the energy recharge is not really as much. So yeah, it might allow you to go like full on damage when building Furina, but other than that, it's not really super good. So yeah, I'd say C tier is the place. Alright, so now for the 4-star weapons, we have the Favonius Sword. It's just pretty much just gonna give you a lot of energy recharge, and that's pretty much it. That's good, but I wouldn't really say it's super good. Again, there's not really much going on besides the energy. I mean, it can also help out your team with energy, which is pretty good, but other than that, for Furina herself, there's not really much going on. So like for damage, it's definitely not as good. So yeah, I'd probably put that like lower B tier or higher C tier, just for the fact that it also helps out your team. I would say it's probably B tier. It's better than like the Skyrider, but I would definitely not recommend using it on Furina. You have the Flute, it just attack, it's pretty much useless, so it's just D tier. Sacrificial is pretty much the same thing as the Favonius, except it doesn't help out your team with energy. It's gonna be resetting your skills, so I can see some like interesting scenarios where it might be used. If you want to have like longer on field time, or if you have like C6 and you want to extend the on field time and stuff like that, but it's probably not going to result in like optimal damage. So yeah, I would say the only good thing in this weapon is just the energy recharge substat. Other than that, the passive, you probably wouldn't want to use that. For like a normal build Furina, you probably don't want to use that. Maybe in some builds I can see it being, you know, played with, but I don't know, I don't think it's going to be as good. So yeah, this weapon just has energy recharge pretty much, so it's going the same thing as the Skyrider. It's probably C tier too. We have the Royal Longsword, just attack, it's D tier. Same thing with Lion's Roar. Broad type Rancor is just physical damage, and then useless passive is going D tier too. Iron Sting is going to give you Elemental Mastery as a substat, which is useless, and then the passive is just going to increase your damage, which is actually pretty good. You're going to be able to trigger the passive pretty easily. You just have to deal like elemental damage, and you're just simply going to increase all of your damage, including your elemental skills damage, which is pretty good. It only has like the damage increase going for it, so I would say it's probably like lower lower C tier, or around C tier pretty much. There's not much going on with this weapon. We have the Black Cliff Longsword. It's pretty much just crit damage, the crit damage substat, and that's it. The high base attack, you're not going to take advantage out of that, and then the attack increase, you're not even going to take advantage out of that, even if you activate the passive. So I would say it's probably like lower C tier too. You have the Black Sword, crit rate as a substat. Passive is just going to increase your normal and charge attacks damage, and then when you crit, it's just going to heal you pretty much. Generally speaking, it's not really that good. They just have crit rate going for it. In some scenarios with like C6 Furina, or if you want to play around field or whatever, again, maybe it's pretty much the same thing as like the sacrificial. It can be interesting to play in some scenarios, but for a normal build, normal usage Furina, it's probably not going to be the weapon. So yeah, I'd say it's C tier 2 generally for most builds. You have the Alley Flash, high base attack, you're not going to take advantage out of that. Elemental Mastery as a substat, useless pretty much too. And then it's going to increase all of your damage, including your elemental skills damage from the passive, which is pretty good, but it's going to be disabled when you take damage, so it's not good. I would generally say it's like C or D tier. The damage increase is not really as much, so honestly I would say it's like higher D tier. I definitely wouldn't recommend using it. That's the PlayStation Sword. No, it's D tier. We have Faster in Desire. Energy recharge is a substat, which is super good, and then the passive is just going to increase your elemental skills damage and also your elemental skills crit rate. This was an event weapon, so a lot of people probably R5 this, not me, but at Refinements 5 is going to be giving you a 32% damage increase for your elemental skill and a 12% crit rate increase, which is super good. And it was also a free-to-play weapon, so that's pretty good. If you had this weapon, especially at R5, it's going to be one of the best weapons for Furina. So honestly, I would say it's S tier. It's going to increase your crit rate, give you elemental damage bonus pretty much, and also give you energy recharge. It has a lot of things, so honestly, I would say it's S tier. I have this weapon at R3 for some reason. Like, I don't know what was going on with me back then, but I just decided R3 is enough, apparently. Just too long to get R5, and now I regret this. We have Amina Makagachi. It's pretty much just attack and a little bit of energy. It's probably D tier. Cinnabar Spindle, just defense. The passive is actually going to increase your elemental skills damage, but it's going to increase it based around defense, which you're not going to be building on Furina, so the increase is not going to be as much, and it's also not going to have like full uptime. It's only going to be like once every 1.5 seconds or something like that, so it's not good. I would say it's definitely around like C or D tier. I'll put it at like lower C tier. This also gives you defense, so you know it might be usable, but like, you know, generally speaking, it's not going to result in like good damage. You know what? Fuck it, it's D tier. I'm not. It's higher D tier. You don't want to use this. We have Kagu Turbiation. That's Kazuha's weapons or something. It's just attack, but yeah, it's just attack pretty much. It's D tier. You have Sapwood Blade. It's gonna give you energy recharge. The passive is just useless pretty much. It's just energy recharge, so I'd say it's like lower C tier. It's not even that much energy recharge, so yeah. We have Sipho's Moonlight, Elemental Mastery, and then energy recharge based around how much, you know, Elemental Mastery you have. You're not gonna build Elemental Mastery on Furina. Elemental Mastery is not gonna be as good, so I would say it's probably like higher D tier. We have Tukabu Shigure, Elemental Mastery, and then the passive can increase like your elemental damage, but it's just too long, so I definitely wouldn't recommend using it too. I'd say it's D tier. We have the Wolf Fang, crit rate as a substat, super good, and then it's just gonna increase your elemental skill and elemental burst damage, and then when your elemental skill hits opponents, your elemental burst crit rate is gonna be increased, and then when your elemental burst hits opponents, your elemental skill crit rate is gonna be increased. You're probably not gonna take advantage out of that because you're not gonna be hitting enemies consistently with your elemental burst, but you're still getting the crit rate from the substat and also the damage increase for your elemental skill, which is super good. Especially with refinements, this weapon is gonna be like super good. I'd put it like lower A tier. Yeah, lower A tier is probably gonna be the place. It's gonna give you elemental damage bonus for your elemental skill, which is just pretty good, and also crit rate, which is good. We have Finale of the Deep. It's just attack, so it's D tier. We have the Flev efficient weapon. It's gonna give you energy recharge, and then it's gonna increase your elemental skills crit rate, and then when you use your elemental skills, it's gonna increase your energy recharge even more. It actually is pretty good. It's kind of like a worse version of the Faster in Desire, especially for Furina. It's not gonna give you like damage bonus is just crit rate, but you're gonna gain more energy recharge, so it's calm, I guess. It's definitely usable. I would say it's probably gonna be like A tier. We have the Dock Hands Assistant. It's gonna give you HP as a substat, which is rare on a sword. The passive is just long, but it's pretty much just gonna give you like elemental mastery and a little bit of energy recharge. Or not energy recharge, just like straight up energy. And it's not a lot, it's like 6 energy or something like that, or 1. So the passive is not really that good on Furina herself, but it's still gonna give you a good HP substat, and that's super good. I would say it could probably be used as like a stat stick generally, just for the substat. With the refinements, it might also be able to give you more energy, but it's gonna be hard to get refinements. It's like a gotcha weapon. That's, I think, the only way to get it. Just you have to wish, and the banner's already, finished. So yeah, it's not free to play friendly, but it's definitely usable and good on Furina. So yeah, the Dock's Hands Assistant, I would say probably B tier. And now moving on to 5-star weapons. Again, as I said, base stack doesn't really matter, so you're going to see a lot of 5 stars not being as good as you might think. For example, starting off with the Aquila of Avonia, just super high base stack, but it doesn't matter. Physical damage is substat, not usable too. Passive, it's going to increase your attack, doesn't matter too. And then the rest of the passive is just some damage and it heals you. It pretty much doesn't matter too, so I would say Aquila of Avonia is going straight to D tier. You have the Scoured Blade. Energy recharge is a substat, that's good. It's going to increase your crit rate by a little bit, 4% from the passive. The rest of the passive is pretty much just attack speed and movement speed and stuff like that, which is kind of useless. At least for like C1 normal use Furina. If you're using her as C6 maybe, but generally speaking, it's not really like the weapon for Furina. So yeah, it only gives you energy recharge. I put it at like, with the energy recharge weapons, like Skyrider, Favonius and stuff like that, it's going C tier. We have Freedom Sword. Elemental Mastery is a substat, which is useless. The passive is just going to increase your damage by 10%. That's like a flat damage increase. The rest of the passive is just the Freedom Sword passive, the long passive when you collect the resistance stuff. It's basically just going to buff your teammates by buffing their, normal and charge and plunging attacks, and also their attack, which is not really, needed on Furina. I mean, it might be played because like she's a support, so you might want to, buff your teammates with it. But generally speaking, as a weapon for Furina herself, it's definitely not as good. I'd probably put it like C tier too. I would say lower C tier. But if you're supporting like Risley, for example, or Noviette or whatever, it's gonna be pretty good. So yeah, I'd say probably C tier. Wouldn't really recommend using, but it's usable. Summit Shaper, just attack D tier. We have the Jade Cutter. Crit rate is a substat, which is super good. It's also gonna give you HP from the passive, and then the rest of the passive is just attack, which you're not gonna need. It's pretty much just gonna give you crit rate and HP, which is good, I would say. I'd put it like lower S tier, to be honest. It's definitely one of her best weapons. Just simple. Crit rate, HP, we take those. We have the Mistplitter Reforged. Crit damage is a substat, and then elemental damage bonus from the passive. Also, if you gain some stacks, it's also going to give you even more elemental damage bonus. You're probably going to be able to get at least 1 or 2 stacks, so it's actually pretty good. Crit damage and then elemental damage bonus. I would say it's A tier. It's usable. You have the Haran Gippaku. Crit rate is a substat, and then elemental damage bonus 2 from the passive. The rest of the passive is just going to increase your normal attacks, which is not really important, at least for like a normal build Furina, maybe at C6 or something like that. So all this weapon gives you is pretty much just crit rate and some elemental damage bonus, which is decent. I'd put it like higher B tier to lower A tier. Let's put it higher B tier. It's usable, but not really super good. Just a small crit rate increase and then a small elemental damage bonus increase. So good, but nothing really special. But it's probably like the best at B tier, I would say. We have Key of Hajnisu. HP is a substat and a huge HP substat, and even more HP from the passive. The rest of the passive is just going to give you elemental mastery and be able to buff the rest of your party members with elemental mastery. It might be good in some cases, it might be not, but for Furina herself, this weapon is pretty much just like a stat stick, just a lot of HP. I would probably put it at like lower A tier, higher B tier, somewhere around that. I'd put it like B tier. It's pretty much just HP, just like the Dock's Hands Assistant. Well, it gives you more HP and like more supportive capabilities, but other than that, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, for Furina herself, I would say it's probably B tier. We have Light of Foliar Incision. Crit damage is a substat, and then crit rate from the passive, a little bit, 4%. The rest of the passive is only going to activate if you have opponents with your normal attacks, and they're going to deal elemental damage, which you cannot really do with Furina. Well, unless you're using like, I don't know, some character who can convert convert your normal attacks. But if you do that, it's gonna give you some elemental skill damage bonus based around your elemental mastery, which you're not gonna build. But yeah, it doesn't matter really unless you're like C6 in my opinion. In C6 it might be usable, but other than that, it's just giving you like crit damage and crit rate. So yeah, I'd put it at A tier. It's like the same thing as the Harbinger of Dawn, or you know, something like that. And then finally we have her signature weapon, Splendor of Tranquil Waters, or whatever. It's gonna give you crit damage, which is super good, and then it's gonna increase your HP and also increase your elemental skills damage, which is, you know, everything you need pretty much. So yeah, obviously it's gonna be S tier, her best weapon. It's gonna give you everything you need, but to be honest, it's not like one of those necessary weapons, especially with like something like the Faster and Desire being there, or like the Jade Cutter. You know, there are a lot of other weapons where it's definitely not necessary to get this weapon for Furina specifically, but you know, if you have it, it's definitely gonna be her best in slot. But yeah, as you guys can see here, she doesn't really have that many like weapon choices that are like the best weapons, but she has quite a bit of like free to play weapons. She doesn't really need like 5-star weapons or something like that. If you had Faster and Desire, then you're lucky. I mean, I have it, but it's R3. It's just sad. But yeah, you can also get the fishing weapon for her. It's gonna work pretty well. You have quite a few options. You know, you don't have to wail. I would say she's, you know, moderately free to play friendly. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. There are gonna be more Furina videos coming out, so make sure to subscribe, and see you guys in the next video. Peace.